I did my biggest project yet, and it was just the best project ever, so I kind of wanted to talk about it, and maybe if people want to see the process that goes into making a children's book. Not that I'm an expert because it's my first one, but just basically my own experience with the process. So this is the book. It's called The Pain in the Chest by Áine Murray and illustrated by me. And Áine reached out to me last summer, so about 6 months ago, in August I think, and she just came to me asking if it's the kind of work I would do. And I've never had the opportunity, but I've always wanted to illustrate a children's book. It's kind of been a dream. So then she sent me the manuscripts out, and yeah, it's just been really cool. I think because I've experienced anxiety a lot throughout my life from a very young age, and everyone does, and it's totally normal. Some people might be more prone to anxious thoughts than other people, you know, and like the main thing is to talk about it, and that's what the whole book is about. It's encouraging children to talk about these feelings that they have, and giving them the tools to express that as well. So yeah, this is the cover. So I basically came up with this idea of like, well, I'm sure it's been done loads of times, but physically making anxiety a physical character in the book, so that it's separate from the main character, this girl here. So, you know, the little monster kind of follows her around through different points of her life, and it kind of crops up, you know, he's kind of hidden in some pages, like really small, and kind of a fun way for children to interact with the book, to like try and spot him, and then throughout the book he gets bigger, the more that she kind of like pushes it down, and then finally she opens up to her mom, because basically she goes through her life, you know, it starts with, this is the first spread, I'll just show you here, and it says, "When I was just 5, I saw a balloon and it shone with the face of my favourite cartoon." And this is the little cartoon. I don't know if you can see, but yep. I love frogs, so I made her favourite cartoon a frog, because, I don't know, this little girl's basically me. And yeah, so it starts with this big fun energetic carnival scene, and everything's so fun about it, and she sees this balloon and she's like, oh my god, and she really wants this balloon, and then it goes, and she goes to go take it, but then she's kind of overwhelmed with all these thoughts, you know, of every bad possible thing that could go wrong. We've all been there. So in the end she doesn't take the balloon, and she walks away with a pain in her chest, and it goes through different stages of her life, you know. It goes to school then, and she wants to audition for this show, and she doesn't in the end, and again she starts secondary school and she wants to make friends with this girl, but she thinks that she doesn't want to be her friend. Yeah, it's just great to give kids that kind of opportunity to be like, oh, that's why I feel that way, you know, and it really opens some conversations, because it can be kind of hard for a parent as well to explain it, so it in this way it's kind of like a tool and a resource to do that. So that's why I love this project so much, because it's just it's such a great project, and Áine's words are so beautifully written, and I don't know how she does it. Like, I was literally crying on the train reading it, obviously because it had a personal thing to it, but to get your point across and get someone to feel a certain way through such simple and limited language, it's really impressive. So that was also very exciting, that I loved her writing, so it was a great collaboration anyway. And so this is the back, which is just a snapshot of one of the inside pages, and you can see her, she's kind of like more in focus. I wish my camera would focus. More in focus than the rest of the scene, and it says, when we start to talk, the worry starts to walk. So this is basically the message of the book, you know, talking about it basically helps. And yeah, so I'll just show you a bit of the kind of like process that goes on, you know, from start to finish, like sketching, brainstorming, all that jazz, to the finished illustrations. Okay. got dressed today. This is my outfit. It's like business casual. So the first thing I did was print out the manuscript that Áine sent me. So this is the manuscript I printed. I can't speak. And I basically underlined all the words that were either important to the story or gave me visuals, something I could work with basically. And I just did little doodles, as you can see. So here's the little balloon that she sees at first, and it's like a little Mickey Mouse, which I then changed to like a little frog face. But these were just like my very initial doodles, because it kind of just got me thinking, like, where do you see balloons? And then I thought, okay, carnival. So it was like setting the scene for each stage of the story. That was my job basically. So yep. And again, it goes to school and she wants to audition for a show, and it's never mentioned in the story, like the words, what the show is. And so I went and I added to the story by doing it as Robin Hood, because in children's books, like, the writer is so limited to the amount of words and the language. So it's the illustrator's job really to kind of flesh out the story in a visual way, because kids are very visual anyway. So so that's what I did. I made it into Robin Hood because I loved Robin Hood as a child, and it's just easier to kind of draw things that you're interested in. So I just kind of took from that. And yeah, again, it's just little doodles. Here's my little terrible doodles. Like, yeah, not great, but it's just more to kind of get my thoughts out in a visual way. So that's what I did first, was just underlining things, kind of thinking about it, and then from that I started to really hone in on it. Like, I created this brainstorm of anxiety as well, like a general kind of anxiety in children, you know, different things. And this is actually where I got the idea of the monster idea. I didn't realize that I got the idea from the brainstorm, but I did. So as you can see here, so this is all I did for my brainstorm. Like, I see people making brainstorms and they're huge, and there's so many different avenues that they think of, and this is all I do for my brainstorms. It's just a few words, and then I kind of, from there I go to my sketching, and it's where I get the idea more evolved is in the sketching part of the process. I suppose everyone works differently. Like, some people might think of words or things like that I'm much more image based when I'm thinking, so it just always comes to me more in the sketching process. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on the brainstorm. I think it's important to do it because it kind of gets your thoughts out really quickly, but it just depends on how you work yourself. And then from here I started sketching, lots of terrible sketching, which I'll bring you through now. Start the sketches with hand-drawn sketches, like the doodles I showed you on the manuscript, and then from there I would like take a picture and upload them to my iPad, and then like draw over them, and then draw over that sketch and draw over that sketch until it's like I refine each element in the sketches. And that's just how I worked on this anyway, and how I usually work in general, because it just saves a lot of paper when I'm sketching on my iPad, and saves a lot of time because you're kind of like layering up things as well. So this is actually the first sketch I did based on this idea about the monster, and I didn't include him holding a bat in the actual thing He's a little bit less aggressive, I think, in the actual artwork. This is a sketch based on the last page of them hugging with the two little monsters walking out with their bags. And yeah, this is where it all kind of came from, this sketch. I'm pretty sure I was in bed when I thought of this, and I had to get up out of bed and sketch this in the middle of the night. Which happens to me too much. I don't know why. It's like just before I fall asleep, I start imagining things. So, as I said, I did most of my sketches on my iPad. So the sketch is probably down here. Yeah. So I started them in red. This is the one where she's like reaching over the string and thinking about, oh, but what if this happens? And you see the little monster in her hair. And that's when you first meet your man. Little anxiety monster. Let me see. Oh, this one has, yeah, so this is like the original sketch. Like probably a sketch from a hand-drawn sketch. More clear. And this is the one with the classroom. And again, this is how I sent them to Áine, these sketches. Once I had all the sketches, pretty much all the rough work done for each spread, I basically sketched them out in red, and then I put the text in black where I was planning on putting the text, just to show her the direction I was heading, because I didn't want to put too much effort into the drawing. It's still a lot of effort to sketch up every single spread, but you know what I mean, like to put in loads and loads of work to make something really polished and perfect and then send to someone and then being like, can you change this, you know, it's just a waste of time. So I sent the sketches over in red and the text in black so she could differentiate between the two, in a slideshow, which I will show you now how I formatted it. So I just used Google Drive to make the slideshow. Like when I was sending to Áine, it was easier for her to look through it in this kind of way, so she could go and look at it and just click the arrow, you know, just to go through all the pages as if she's like flicking through the book. And this is just to give her the concept art. So, and as I said before, I did the sketch in red and the text in black just so she could differentiate, because obviously the sketches are quite messy. And yet, just given the concept and kind of like I'd add in little text here saying the thought process behind this, so like little thought bubbles representing those intrusive thoughts. I thought it would be good to separate anxious thoughts and reality this way. This is where we are introduced to a silly little monster as a way to visually represent anxiety. Kids tend to like silly things, and also makes it easier to get the feeling across as you can see it. And she could just go through each spread, and if there's anything she wanted to change, she could let me know. And the only thing she wanted to change was the format. Obviously it was square in the end, so I started with a rectangular book shape, and I'm really glad that she did want to do the square because it looked a lot better, and also it meant that I could include a lot more in the spread. Looking at it now, it just looks wrong looking at it like this. So yeah, so that's how I sent the storyboards to get her feedback, and then I went with her feedback, which was the only thing to do was to make it square, and I redid the sketches in a square format, and then it was kind of ready to go and experiment with mediums. So that was the next stage. So these are some examples of the experiments I was doing. So I was looking at this one particular illustration, and I was doing it all in different mediums. It's the one where she is worried about getting lost at the carnival if she tries to take the balloon that she wants. So I was thinking of making the background of all these people one colour. Like I was kind of experimenting with layers, like doing watercolour and blue, and then this is I think watercolour over watercolour, and then gouache over watercolour, and then pencil. So I was looking at the pencil over watercolour, and doing just her in colour as the focal point. But then I didn't really like how this was coming out. I wanted to focus more on all these people to make it look even bit, because I think this makes it less busy looking than if I had them all kind of the same colour. So from there I was like doing paint. I gave up very quickly on these because I wasn't liking this kind of blocky sort of thing. I was kind of using colours, too many colours as well, and everything was a bit disjointed or something. And that's when I decided to do everything kind of more organically, like do the line work. Instead of kind of doing, I was kind of breaking up all the elements, like doing it all in shapes rather than the lines. And I think the line work was kind of more important. This is another painted version that I was doing, but with lines first. So instead of just block colours, it was lines. I actually did him in a collage-y kind of way for this one. And I was going to like scan this and like place it on top of like the background. And this was one of the options that I sent to Áine along with the one that we went with. What I did after I sketched, yeah, I uploaded them to my computer and then I would print them off for the line work as like an underneath. So for example, so I'll do this one, printed them all off in one go. I'm just kind of showing you, going through it again, what I did. So I just print each page on an A4 page. The paper I used for making the ink drawings for this book is called Arches hot press, so it's a more smooth surface. I used Newton & Windsor Black Indian ink, and it's just regular ink. And these are my little nibs, so they're all different kind of styles, like different line thickness or whatever. And I just put them in here, and yeah. So for the line work, I used the nibs and the ink, and for the textures and shadows I used the ink mixed with water and a paintbrush, just to kind of give a bit of, like, as you can see here, just a bit of texture in the work, because I didn't want it to be too flat, so I just wanted to do the colour digitally, and everything else I did analog. So these are all my ink drawings from the book. For the clouds, I just kind of really watered down the ink and like added, you know, drops of water to create textures like that, and then used the nibs to draw the stars. And I actually like did a lot of experimenting with this, and I really like how kind of tactile it is. I did a lot of like splashing with the ink as well to create these splatters. As you can see, it's like really messy and my whole desk was covered in ink. And yeah, so some things I would do separately and I just scan them in then and place them on top of the page. So like, for example, this would be like this, but obviously like I'd position it in a way and get rid of all the lines I don't want. Here's the classroom. Her as Robin Hood. These were done separately as well, just because I wanted to really create this cloud shape. And as you can probably notice from through the pages, there's a lot of cloud imagery. I love drawing clouds anyway, but I think for this it was more like using it as a divide between her anxious thoughts and reality. So like, I didn't just draw a scene with her on stage, it's in a cloud and she's thinking about it to kind of differentiate between the two. And again here, she's thinking about it in the classroom, these scenarios that could happen. Yeah, I just have this little guy creeping on her shoulder every now and again, and you know, I used a lot of perspective, like for example, using this kind of big stage to kind of emphasize her feelings, like this kind of, she feels really small and like all these faces staring at her. And I used a lot of shadows as well and perspective with different people, because she's like, oh, she doesn't want me to be a friend, and she actually notices they're wearing the same shoes as well after she has her back turned. And also, what I like is the fact that like the little sub characters notice the monster. Like it's like they can only see them, like the cat, and it's always like trying to protect her from the little monster. And here's the point where the monster starts to get bigger. And again, I used a lot of texture here with water in the ink. And this was such a nice phase. Usually I like doing the drawing, but for this project I loved colouring in. Because I had all the line work and I had even the texture and the shading done with the ink. So all I had to do was add the colour on top, and it was all very like relaxing, and I just got that all done really. I got the colouring done very quickly. Like the line work is what took the longest, because I was doing most of the work with the lines and with the ink. I scan them and I upload them onto my iPad. I just airdrop them from my my MacBook. So once I go into my iPad, I would go to photo and I'd pick the scan of the line drawing, and then it would come up. It would come up like this, basically, exactly like this. So then I would go and I'd create a line, or I would edit this. So I would go onto this layer with the scan, and I'd go and I would maybe erase little specks that I didn't want there or whatever. And then once I did that, I would create a layer on top and I click multiply. It's the first mode in the layer. So this will be normal and all the color will be on top of the lines. But with multiply, it shows the lines that are underneath, and that's how I color things digitally. And yeah, then I would add in extra details digitally, like the Robin Hood here, and their little moons and stars, and their little crests on their jumper, and anything that I missed out, I would do digitally on my iPad. And the very last part was the graphic design. So after I'd done the illustrations, obviously when I screened the illustrations I had the text in mind, so I kind of, in the sketches, I placed the text and like would make them, you know, work together. I had an idea anyway where I was putting the text, so I just opened up the illustrations in Photoshop and I added in the text in Photoshop. And then I created the file, the book file in InDesign after that, and I uploaded the images with the text on top into InDesign so that it would be print ready. So I put up on my Instagram to ask any questions, and a few people asked questions. Thank you to those people, because I was like putting it up, I was like, no one's gonna ask me anything, I'm gonna have to make up questions and people. But anyway, Amelia asks, how long has it taken you to evolve into your art style? Well, I don't really feel like I have an art style. I think style is a very broad term, you know, like I use a lot of different mediums and lots of different ways of working depending on what it is I'm doing. Like some mediums might suit a certain project better than others, so that's kind of how I try and work anyway. And to be honest, I feel like as soon as I stopped thinking about my style and what it should be, or you know, trying to figure out my style is when my work started to look good beside each other. Like they might not even be in the same kind of style, but they still worked and they still had my kind of brand. And I think it was because I just stopped thinking about it and I just did the kind of work that I wanted to do. And I think style is kind of always changing, because art is very personal, and so it kind of reflects where you're at, and people are always changing, you know, you're always growing and developing and evolving yourself. So it's just kind of goes hand in hand, like your art is going to change too, and it's really normal. And I think people kind of are too hard on themselves, including me. I was like so bogged down about my style and I was just so worried about it. So I think that's the answer. I don't know, I don't really have I don't feel like I'm fully formed yet, and I think that's okay to feel that way as well. You should just keep doing what you want to do. Evie asked, I love the colours. Thanks, Evie. Do you choose by instinct, reference images, colour theory, psychology? Probably all of the above. Like I tend to work in a lot of warm colours, because it reflects kind of my work best, and I kind of look at reference images, like when I'm taking inspiration, I'm like looking at different palettes, like what works together. You know, like sometimes I just look up Wes Anderson colour palettes for films and I just take inspiration from that, or other, you know, movie directors. I love movies. I think it's really fun to get inspiration from things that aren't what you're doing. In some parts I do use psychology, like in the carnival scene. The one I showed before, it's orange, and orange is a very energetic colour. It's like in psychology. That's why you see a lot of sportswear that's bright orange, because I wanted the first scene to be very energetic. So I was looking at in that, but not always, you know, not each page is, okay, what is the psychology behind this? But it depends on everything. I just kind of figure it out as I go along, to be honest. Kira asked, how did you become such an amazing illustrator? Thanks, Kira. I wouldn't even consider myself an amazing illustrator, but that's really nice. Again, like I'm just trying to do the work that I want to do, and not trying to be like everybody else, I guess. I kind of do things my own way, which sometimes at first I'd be like, oh, my art doesn't look like any Irish artists, and that used to freak me out a little bit. You know, it's good to have a different space in the market for your work, so it's good to stand out, I guess. So hopefully I do stand out in a good way. But John asks, do illustrations for children's books require a psychology screening? I don't know about that. As I've said before, I'm not an expert. It's my first children's book illustration job. I don't know if that is a thing. I've never heard of it. I didn't do it for this, but the author has a background in psychology anyway, so I feel like she would probably know what's good and what's not. Peter asked, how did you nail down a colour scheme? With the carnival scene, it was orange and pinks, like sunset, but energetic. And then for the overall kind of theme, I was looking at primary colours, but in a very toned down kind of way, like slightly earthier, because I wanted it to be kind of contrasting with the little monster. So the anxiety monster is like these reds and pinks, really like contrasting, and I wanted everything else to be very like harmonious together so he would stand out. I was gonna do him just red and orange, I think, but then it was too like anger, so I was like, okay, I need to change this to be a different kind of feeling. So I did it with pink. Susan asks, did you make the book through screen printing / risograph? I do a lot of risograph. I don't do it myself, but I like to order risograph from my shop and stuff, but I didn't do this in risograph. I just used, as I said before, ink and digital colour. Yeah. Gemma says, nothing to ask, just that I love it. Thanks, girl. Flo asked, most difficult aspect of the process, and how long did the entire process take? So the most difficult part was the beginning. My own mind, to be honest. Like, because it was my first project like this, and it was something I really cared about, and I really wanted to do it justice and do it well, and I kind of I was thinking about it too much at the beginning, and I kind of was like afraid to start nearly, and that in turn meant that by the end I was like working a lot to finish it for the deadline, and I just, yeah, it was, I was being very silly and just my own brain, you know, overthinking. And it took 3 months from the start to the very end. So it was like, so hold on one second, I'll get the contract, and it has the different deadlines on it. Yeah, so looking back at the emails, the first time we were talking email was the 6th of August. And then from there we chatted about, you know, what she wanted, and then I sent her through a quote, and then once she, you know, was like, yeah, cool, I sent her a contract. I broke it down into stages for the deadlines. So stage 1 was the sketches, basically the storyboards and the concept. That was due by the 26th of September 2020. And then the stage 2 was any changes to the design. So if she looked at the storyboards and wanted to change anything, I would then do that and make the amends. And that was due by the 10th of October. So not too long after the sketches, just to, it wouldn't take too much time to just refine sketches or whatever. And then the final artwork was due by the 20th of November. Yeah, so pretty much 3 months from the start until the end, and I made the deadline just about, and yeah, so 3 months. Antonia asks, how did you find Áine Murray / how did you find this job? And as I said before, Áine Murray reached out to me on Instagram, so she found my work through Instagram, and felt like it was a good fit, thankfully. Lou asks, how does the royalties work for you? So I did 5% royalties, just because she's a self-publisher. I think the average is like 5 to 10% for illustrators with children's books. So we did an advance payment. It just means that, you know, it works for both parties, because it's not a flat fee where the commissioner is breaking the bank to pay the illustrator, but also with an advance fee it's not just royalty based, so it's the illustrator isn't waiting to be paid once money starts coming in, so it works for both people, and it's like a nice balance. So it's an advance fee, and then I get royalties of 5% once Áine makes a profit equaling to the advance fee she paid me. I'm very bad at the business side of things, to be honest. I'm still learning as I go, but... And Lou also asks, if you were to redo the whole project, what would you do differently? Yeah, as I said, I was very nervous starting the project, and I think I definitely would have not done that because I kind of shot myself in the foot, because I was doing a lot of work near the end to try and you know, meet the deadline. I did really enjoy the process. But I think I would have reveled in it a bit more if I had more time and to do that. So yeah, start earlier, definitely. It worked out in the end. Like, I didn't have to experiment too much to figure out the way I wanted to work for this project, but that might not have happened. Like, sometimes it just doesn't click very quickly in projects, so you really do have to be able to give yourself the time to figure it out and play around and have fun, because it could have gone the other way, and thankfully it didn't, and it all worked out and I met the deadline and it was all good. But I have one last question from Ali, and she asked, what was your favourite part about illustrating? For this project, the fact that I could illustrate something that was so important and something so personal, like something that's something that's always affected my life from a really young age till now, and maybe my artwork helping a little baby that was just like me when I was young. So definitely that. Thank you so much for the questions. I really didn't think I would get any, so that's really cool. And thank you for watching this video, and if you've made it this far, wow, that's amazing, because I can tell this is going to be a really long video. So if you're still watching this, you're really cool, and I hope you have a great day, because you're really cool. Yeah. No. Stop, Finn. Stop. Stop. Stop.